an article. Obviously, there was comments too, so you could listen to this. But former Islanders general manager Neil Smith was a little bit critical of Lou Lamoriello and what he did this offseason, Mitch.
Yeah, let's just frame this a little bit. Neil Smith was the GM for
5 seconds.
a month and 10 days.
Okay.
Now, that's not to say he's not smart or anything of the sorts.
No.
Because when you listen to what he said, as much as I don't like anyone talking ill about the Islanders, like think about there's a comic out there where it's a guy walking around and he finds a flag and it just says Team A on it. And he's like, oh, cool. And then there's another guy who walks by who's got another flag that says Team B. And the guy just says hi. The Team B guy says just hi. And after Team B guy is out of frame, Team A guy goes, oh, fuck that guy. Because screw him, he's a Team B guy. I'm kind of just like that. It's very tribalistic.
Yes.
I don't like someone speaking ill about my team. But when you listen to what he said, none of it is wrong necessarily. Not a single thing. Because he does say they're in park. They're stuck in park. They haven't really gone forward. And I don't think that there's anyone in Islanders land that will say what they did this offseason, they definitely took a step forward. Right?
I don't know. I'm going to push back on that slightly. Okay. I don't think they did enough to make them like, oh, this is a Stanley Cup contending team.
Correct.
And maybe that's the differentiation here. But I look at this roster compared to a year ago, and I think they are improved. No Matt Martin, no Kyle Clutterbuck. You bring in Anthony Duclair and Maxim Tiplikov. I think that in of itself is an upgrade.
Yeah, and so I think that's because when you listen to what Neil Smith was saying, it's like you bring in Duclair, who could give you quite a bit. He's probably going to give you 20 goals. He's probably going to do a little bit more, help you on the power play, help you on that top line, give you a little bit more speed, a little bit more offensive creativity. But we're still tinkering around the edges, right, of the roster. And by edges, I mean like we're adding things, but we're not really. There's no game breakers, right? In and of itself, Anthony Duclair isn't moving the needle a whole lot forward. Maybe a bit. But we're still not talking about our margin of error growing a lot. The thing with the Islanders is that their margin for error was always super narrow. And if anything went wrong, then forget about it. And by it, I mean, think of like the playoffs. Now, yeah, you know what? Now that I keep talking about that, just side note, is our margin of error that thin? Because Ilya Sorokin was shit this year and we still made the playoffs. Just
barely.
side note on that thought alone, is our margin of error that thin?
It's thin, but maybe it's not as thin as we thought.
Yeah. Right?
Because
sorry, for all you at home, like this is me just going off the fly. Like my brain is going, wait a second, Mitch, what is coming out of your mouth isn't necessarily computing with the feelings that they're generating.
So, I mean, Sorokin last year wasn't good. Pelech, who's a top 4 defenseman for them, I thought had a horrible year. Anders Lee, who they rely on to score 28 goals, was bad. JG Pajot, who's an integral part of their he's a third liner, but in what they're trying to do, he's an important part of that, was really bad. Yeah, maybe you're right. I get where you're coming from on that. I think everything doesn't have to go perfect for them to be a playoff team. Everything has to go perfect in order for them to make noise once they get to said playoffs.
Right. And so, yeah, like that's the kind of reconciling live that is happening with my feelings right now, going that I've said for a long time that the margin of error is so thin, but then you see what happened this year. Anders Lee, 12 goals under expected. Ilya Sorokin couldn't stop a beach ball. The penalty kill just went every time they went on the ice. Right? And we still made the goddamn playoffs and won 2 games in the first round. Probably could have won 3, like at minimum. So we gave Carolina a run for their money in that, right? Even though we lost 4-2, like we could have been better, and we were playing Semyon Varlamov.
Yeah, they should have been. That was a very frustrating series, more so than even a year ago. Yeah, that wasn't really planned on the docket for tonight. But now that you're bringing it up, it's It's interesting to look at because I mean, we both said that a bunch on this show, and I still believe it to an extent. Like I kind of said a couple seconds ago here. I think it's just maybe the margin isn't as slim as what we thought. They can't have everything go wrong, but you could say the same thing about any team in the league, really. But
although, like, think about New Jersey. They lost a player in Dougie Hamilton, and their goalie was shit. Our goalie was awful too. They just couldn't get any goalie to do anything, and they fell way out of it, right? Like, they just could not stop the train from crashing into a wall.
Yeah, they had Jack Hughes miss 20 games too, though.
Still, that's a quarter of the season. He was still there for 3/4 of it.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Still getting basically a 75-point player.
The Islanders missed Matt Barzal for how many games? That 2 years ago, I guess now, 22, 23. So
still did it.
Okay,
so, like,
interesting.
Yeah. So the margin of error it may not be, as you said, as razor thin as we had framed it previously. But going back to Neil Smith, even when he's, I'm going to say poo-pooing, but he's not actually poo-pooing on the Islanders. He's just saying, like, well, he's saying what we're all seeing. It's clear that they're not progressing as quickly forward as we would like them to. But even he's saying, like, they're probably still going to finish third in the Metropolitan Division. Even he flat out said they're probably still going to finish third because that division isn't very good.
If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.